Yo, what's going on, guys? Winter Kills here, and welcome to a brand new deck profile video. Today I am beyond excited to share with you guys my new and updated Earth Machine deck profile here for December of 2023. I know it's been a long time since I've done an Earth Machine deck profile on this channel. I believe it's been over 2 years at this point. But thanks to you guys helping raise almost $800 for the Wild Bird Fund during our last One Deck One month, I promised you guys if we hit the $100 mark, I would revisit Earth Machine and play it again at locals, which I've done, and I've recorded 4 of my matches, all 4 of my rounds from one local, and they should already be up on the channel by now, or at least most of them. And I ended up going 3-1 at both locals. So I ended up topping back-to-back weeks with the deck, and I honestly was pleasantly surprised by that. I really was struggling with the deck at first, but after I started testing it more and more over on my stream, I was getting a little bit more comfortable with the deck, you know, kind of getting the rust off, if you will, and got familiar with everything again, and it felt great to play. A lot of fun to play, very satisfying to play, and still holds up decently well in today's current format, which is a really nice thing to see. And one thing I did notice, though, that I was kind of happy and not happy with was the fact that this deck really hasn't changed a whole lot since I last touched it. You know, no one's really playing the new Infinitrack card, which I think is hilarious, by the way, and after testing this deck myself, I don't really think it deserves a spot in the main deck to be 100%, although you could play it, but you don't need it. And everything else is still pretty much more or less the same, which again is cool, but also like, come on, I'd like to see a little bit more, you know, innovation with the deck. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And yeah, I'm super excited again to share with you guys the list. Before I go into the deck profile, quick shout out to Imperium Duelist, guys. Check them out at the link below. They sell all sorts of amazing TCG accessories, playmats, dice, deck boxes, binders, sleeves, you name it. They sell it, and it's all great quality stuff. And you can also use my discount code WinterKillsSendOff at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. And if you guys are buying anything on TCG Player, feel free to use my affiliate link down in the description of all my videos. Anytime you guys shop and check out using that link, a small bit of the revenue from your purchase will go right back into the channel, and believe me, it helps out a ton. So next time you do some shopping and you want to support me, that's an easy way to do it. So with all that being said, let's hop into the deck profile. And yeah, like I said, this deck has been performing very well for me. I've topped locals with it somehow back-to-back weeks, and I think the only changes I made from the first week to the second week was what hand traps I was playing, and I added in a second copy of a certain card, and I'll tell you guys what those were as we get into the list. So first and foremost, we have 3 copies of Machina Gear Frame, and of course, to go with it, 1 copy of Unclass Bear. You know, just one of the best cards to always draw into. But yeah, this engine, I never really was a fan of it at first, mainly because it's not a 1-card combo like Metal Cruncher is. But where this card lacks in being a 1-card starter, 1-card combo, it makes up for in the potential power of the plays that it can make, right? What I mean by that is, like, when you resolve redeployment and you get access to both of these, not only do you get access to cards like Citadel right off the bat and Fortress, but you can then go into a rank 4 like Gear Gigan to also get access to your Infinitrack cards, and then you can go into like Platinum Gadget, summon the Harvester, get Dozer, and then do Dozer combo. And you might say, well, isn't that just like Dozer combo with more steps? And I agree, it does seem like that, but again, you can't overlook the fact that you're also getting more of your Machina cards in play, which is very, very valuable. A lot of the times, the problem with the Dozer combo in the past was like you just never always guaranteed get to Citadel and set up everything else, which was kind of a bummer because Citadel is such an insane card in this deck. But this engine definitely helps you to do that. And also, you can't overlook the synergy that Gear Frame has with Regulus, as it's one of its best, you know, features. So, yeah. That's that. And basically, my own personal signature, I guess, with this deck is I've always loved playing 2 copies of Fortress as opposed to just 1, like I think is standard for most builds. And the reason I play 2 is because this card is absolutely insane. Now, would I go so far as to play 3? Probably not. I just like having a second copy in deck to be able to grab off of things like gear frames, sending off in class spares, or more importantly, resolving redeployment like after turn 1. Like that ends up being a big deal and has definitely cost me games. And I just don't like not having access to a second copy of this card because, like I said, this card is insane. This plus Citadel can just crack boards, and having multiple fortresses in rotation, in my opinion, has really never been a bad thing. Even if you draw both of them, you can just pitch both of them to summon one of them, and that's a body on field to potentially help you get into some semblance of a combo. And that's, again, why I like this card so much. The graveyard setup that it offers, too, is also really nice. And, I mean, you don't have to play 2, but I've always preferred playing 2 over just the 1 copy. And then moving forward, we have Citadel, and I figured I'd put Rune Force together with it because these cards kind of go hand in hand. Citadel is an absolute house, still a great boss monster in today's format. So many people would just forget about this in the grave. It would slap itself onto the field, and then it would proceed to blow up their entire board, and I would just kill them next turn because huge machine monsters are kind of crazy. And Rune Force, also speaking of crazy, is absurd. Not once per turn to summon it, and you can freely get rid of things like fortresses or citadels because if they clear the Rune Force, you can freely just summon them back to the field so long as their levels are 12 and under, and your opponent can forget about doing anything in the battle phase because if they do, we're going to negate it and have both of our life points, making it that much easier to finish the job either in the battle phase or in main phase 2 by going for our favorite rank 10 gun. So we got 2 of those, well, 1 of each of those I should say. Then moving on for the Machina cards, we have 3 copies of Redeployment. No one was surprised. Yeah, Droll and Lockbird be damned, right? We're still playing this card. It's still insane. The amount of advantage this card can generate alone is absolutely absurd. So yeah, you definitely got to play 3 of those. And then of course the 1 Overdrive. I made a crucial error in one of my last matches is that I did not side this card out going second. Don't make the same mistake I did. But regardless, this card is still amazing to be able to set up on your turn 1 end board because it allows you to, go for other lines that don't focus on necessarily getting Citadel to the graveyard, which means you can set up other things like maybe a rank 10 play, a Regulus play, whatever it may be, and this still gets you access to Citadel, plus a draw 1 on the follow-up too, which is really important, especially for recycling things like Tunneler and Trenchers back into the deck. And then that is it for the Machina engine. Now let's take a look at the Infinitrack cards, where we have 3 copies of Infinitrack Harvester. This card is a 1-card combo starter, unlike that of the Gear Frame. But again, the ceiling of the Harvester line is a little bit lower than that of like something like a Redeployment line using Gear Frame, right? But Harvester's still great. We still get a lot of value off of just this 1 card alone. Sometimes you can set up a rank 10 alongside Knuckle or Regulus with Knuckle, plus a draw 2 depending on what's in the hand. But it's usually just a draw 2 plus Knuckle, and anything you get on top of that adds on to that end board and makes it a lot better. And one thing that's always rubbed me the wrong way about this deck is how sometimes this end board is literally a link 2 with a draw 2, which is, it sounds bad because sometimes it usually is, but the way this deck works, you're usually able to set up a lot more than that. Usually a rank 10 like Dora, Citadel's in graveyard, maybe Regulus is on field, hand traps, or if it's post side, skill drain, set in the back line, right? So it's just like a canvas, if you will, a blank canvas to build upon with this deck, because most of the time you are going to be able to put up a little bit more than just Knuckle Pass. But sometimes Knuckle Pass is still pretty damn good because it just somehow manages to be. I really can't explain it. And then moving on, we have 2 copies of Trencher. Basically banish itself to revive an Infinitrack level 5 or lower from the graveyard. Fantastic card. Sometimes I've thought about playing 1, but having that second copy again for turn 3 is super, super valuable, especially when it gives you access back to Harvester, which can research out Dozer if you recycled it with Tunneler. And this does a couple things for you. It allows you to link into Goliath, which allows you to bring back Riverstormer, which allows you to search out rank 10s to make Dora, go in for the kill with Juggernaut Lieb, or grab an Omni Negate like Regulus, or allows you to take advantage of Harvester's level manipulation effect with things like Bullet Train for a Zeus play, or with Fortress for an Enter Blathnir, or a Earth Slicer play. So yeah, tons of utility off of these cards, so definitely want to play 2. The one of Brutal Dozer, still no foil upgrade, which is hilarious, because this card is amazing. It just, if it resolves, you get access to your Trencher setup or your Tunneler Engrave. You can search out any Earth Machine from the deck, add it to your hand, continue with your draw 2 combo, right? Sets you up with so much stuff. And 1 Tunneler, because Pot of Avarice in Archetype is crazy. So definitely want to play one of those. And it's also just an extender in the hand, much like Trencher and Dozer. And then we have our level 10s here, which I am playing just 1 Bullet and 1 Derricrane. There have been some times where I've liked to play at least 2 copies of these, because sometimes just seeing multiples of these cards or just having a higher chance of drawing a level 10 in the opening hand is almost never a bad thing, because that does allow you to make like more consistently higher ceiling end boards, which sometimes I felt is like an issue with this deck, right? Sometimes ending Knuckle Pass isn't going to cut it. Maybe 50% of the time it's probably not going to cut it if you are unfortunate enough to just have to end on something like that. But if you add in more level 10s to the deck, you are technically increasing your odds of ending on things like Super Dora, which just makes your end board that much more robust and that much harder for your opponent to try to break, especially with the Derricrane interruption as well. So, but for the sake of fitting in more non-engine and keeping the deck as a low card count as possible, I think 1 and 1 will work. And is definitely fine. And then we also have 1 copy of Therion King Regulus, the searchable Omni Negate in this deck because it is an Earth Machine, thankfully, and it equipping the Gear Frame is also insane because Gear Frame can just special summon himself out with his equip effect, and then that's just a free extender to do whatever with. And the Regulus is also recyclable with the Bullet Train, so that was something I was doing a lot. And know in the past, a play we would make is we would use Bullet to add back Box, and then Box would search you out Anchor Drill, which sets you up for a Dingirsu play on the Crackback, which was super nice because that forces out like a lot of things, adds a lot of pressure going into the next turn. But being able to recycle your Omni Negate to start your turn with, which can equip your your Gear Frame, bring that up, help make more cards, and build more advantage to go for game while having that Omni Negate protected is almost better. And I think it is actually just better at the end of the day. And then 1 Gearbox because we do have to play that really, really bad engine requirement. Moving on to the spells here and the rest of the Infinitrack cards, we have 3 copies of Heavy Forward, just basically tanky for your Infinitracks with some other nice effects, changing the battle position of an XC or attaching to an XCs as well. 3 copies of Urgent Schedule. This card is insane. Basically double E-Telly if your opponent has more cards than you or more monsters than you. And every time this card resolved, I was just in a winning position always. Especially if my main play got stopped. This was a fantastic way to keep pushing through whatever interruptions they had. And I think it only got Ash like once or twice. Then into the non-engine, we have 3 copies of Ash, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, which this was originally Effect Veiler that first week, but I swapped it out for Droll, and I'm way happier that I did. 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent, 1 copy of Call by the Grave, and 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, as that is really all the non-engine that I was able to fit in here, and it's pretty much all just like the best non-engine that there really is to play really currently in this format. I thought about playing Nibiru, but didn't seem worth it. I think everything in here worked out really well. The talents especially was super clutch, especially with Zeus in the deck. It's always nice to have that option to take an Xyz and turn it into a Zeus, especially against like Pearly and the like. So yeah, really like the non-engine. That's it for the main deck. Now we're going to take a look at the extra inside. So starting off with the extra deck here, we have 3 copies of Infinitrack Goliath, the link one that you can spam literally up to 4 or 5 times per turn, because you can make all 3 in a turn, recycle all 3, and then summon at least 2 more. I think that was the most I've ever summoned Goliath in a single turn, was like 4, maybe 5 times. But basically, this just is loading up your graveyard with stuff to recycle for Tunneler. That's basically the sole purpose of Goliath. And yes, it does have a secret effect, not so secret ever since Cash was playing this card for a while. But if it does get sent to the graveyard, you can target an Xyz monster you control, attach it to his material, and then if that monster that is attached to his original type is Machine, they cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is really, really nice. Just because, like, sometimes you already make these huge Xyz monsters, and You know, they're really not going to be able to be destroyed by battle for the most part. So now the fact that you can make them indestructible via card effect too is also super, super insane. And another thing about this too is just like free Ixies material for things like Earth Slicer, Chillin' Engrave, or River Stormer, which is, again, gives you so much more follow-up on turn 3. Then we have some other one-of links here, like Platinum Gadget. This card is definitely mandatory for sure, because there are some times where you need to like search out your Harvester with Geargigan, and then a way to get that Harvester on field after burning the normal summon already. And Platinum Gadget is just the way to do it. Then we have Clifford Genius, which is arguably one of the weaker cards in the extra deck. If I would change one thing out in the extra deck, it might be Clifford Genius for either Gaia Charger, the rank 6, or maybe something like a second Anger Knuckle. But I didn't mind playing the Genius because it is a way to like negate stuff on field. It's also unaffected by spell and trap card effects, and the activate effect of linked monsters, which is like kind of cute, I guess, in some matchups. Ancient Gear Ballista, of course, because we need a way to search out our Ancient Gear box and the cards that it searches out. And then we play one copy of literally the best Link 2 one of the best Link 2s I've ever played with, and that's the double-handed Anger Knuckle. This card is insane. It allows you to make rank 10s. It just allows you to do all sorts of weird shenanigans. Like, especially a cool thing you can do is with this card and Tunneler, for example, right? So you can go ahead and use Tunneler Engrave and target maybe like 4 links and a bullet train, right? You can then chain Anger Knuckle to that by discarding something per se like, I don't know, Ancient Gearbox, right? It might be chilling in your hand. To summon the bullet train to your field or any level 10 target for Knuckle, and your Tunneler will still resolve because it doesn't say shuffle all 5 back, and it just says shuffle them. That's why DD crowing and stuff doesn't stop the Tunneler from resolving. And then you only have to put 4 back, and you still draw 2 cards, and all those cards are going back into the extra deck, so you're digging 2 cards deep straight into the main deck, which is great, which means a higher chance at seeing things like non-engine and side deck cards, which can be the difference between winning and losing in most matchups. So yeah, this card is crazy. Not only can it do that, but its graveyard effect allows us to play Skill Drain to an absolute T. If we flip up Skill Drain on our opponent's turn and they clear Anger Knuckle, we can just, you know, trigger Citadel and Grave to get that out of the field for free, because why not? But during our next turn, we can just go Knuckle, send the Skill Drain off to the field to special summon itself back. And not to mention, things like Therion King Regulus can still also work under Skill Drain because it sent itself off the field for cost 2, which just, again, makes Skill Drain even better in this deck. Now, the only reason I wish I could play 2 of these is because sometimes being able to hard make a second Anger Knuckle is a lot better than bringing the Anger Knuckle in your graveyard back, because you can use double-headed Anger Knuckle's effect to discard and bring back a level 10 from the grave, which if you bring him back from the grave with his own effect, you can't do that because you can only use 1 Anger Knuckle effect per turn. So, I mean, I guess they had to make it fair and balanced, I guess, all that stuff. But, you know, you lose out on that really good effect, and sometimes that can slow you down when you're trying to go for a game by getting 2 level 10s on field. Although, I will say, having access to Rune Force kind of makes that a little bit easier, a little bit less of a problem, but it does still come up sometimes. Moving on to the Xyz, we have 1 copy of Geargigant, 1 copy of River Stormer. This card's insane. Enter Blathnir, which is also amazing just to go for it in your normal combo, just to check for hand traps, maybe force a Nibiru early because they're afraid we're going to snipe it out of their hand. But it's also just non-targeting banishment, which is just insane. A lot of times, we can banish things from the grave, from their field, from their hand at random, or, for some reason, even the top card off their deck. And then the other rank 9 counterpart is Earth Slicer, which is sometimes just huge mass removal by detaching any number of cards we want and destroying that many cards our opponent controls. And it has the same graveyard effect that Stormer does, where we can send off a machine link to summon itself back in defense, and if that machine link is Goliath, Goliath will reattach to either of these, right, giving us access to either a search or send of any Earth machine or another pop, basically. And then we have our suite of rank 10s, which consist of the Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon, Gustav Max, the number 81 Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Super Dora, and the Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Juggernaut Leaf. Gun, medium gun, and bigger gun. Yeah, basically your OTK package in a nutshell right here, and your best thing to make usually on your turn 1 end board, because they're really not going to be able to get rid of this unless they make like Underworld Goddess, which means they're probably going pretty minus just to get this off the field. And in some cases, give us an end phase search or add back off of the bullet train. And again, we have Citadel set up in graveyard, just makes our end board that much harder to get rid of. And then we have 1 Divine Arsenal, AA Zeus, Sky Thunder, just because, you know, we play a lot of Xyz monsters, and sometimes you aren't able to OTK with this combo. Being able to slap a Zeus on top of that, just to kind of clear things up, you know, secure the dub on the next turn, is really nice. So it's a great finishing piece, if you will. And that's the only reason, again, why I wanted to play something like Gaia Charger 2, because sometimes when you bring back River Stormer on that turn 3, it comes out in defense, right? So if you don't have access to heavy forward, you can't really make Zeus because it's in defense, unless you have like another Xyz to attack with. But having access to Gaia Charger kind of fixes that and gives you at least 1 send by, you know, getting that extra material underneath it. So yeah, that's the extra deck. Pretty self-explanatory. I know there was a time where people were playing the Rise Heart here, or a Rise Heart. Never got to play the deck with that. I imagine it was probably pretty fun being able to make a Rise Heart in this deck, but yeah, I don't mind the tried and true extra deck. Now into the side deck here, where we have 3 copies of DD Crow, mainly for Pearly, for Tear Lament. I think those are probably the only 2 things that I would side this in against. Maybe Labyrinth, because I don't have much for that matchup in here. 2 copies of Jizukiru. Again, this is mainly for Pearly, just getting rid of Noir. I don't care if you're adding cards back because I'm OTKing you. That's just kind of the logic behind that. 2 copies of Lightning Storm. This maybe could be something different. I thought about making it Cosmic Cyclone just for Centurion. But I haven't run into Centurion once with this deck, and honestly don't respect the deck that much, but I probably should because they turn skip. Then we have 1 Duster and 1 Triple Tactics Talent for going first, the 3rd copy, because I genuinely didn't know what else to put in. Again, it could be like 3 Cosmics and a Duster. That would probably just be better if I'm being honest. 3 copies of Evenly Matched, just because it's great against backrow decks. It's good against board breaking, or like build-a-board decks, etc., etc. And last but not least, we have what should be 3 copies of Skill Drain. Shout out to my friend Tiny for letting me borrow 2, one of which was signed by the DB Grinder. This is pretty cool. But yeah, Skill Drain is absolutely nuts. I wish I would have seen it more. I think I only drew Skill Drain in a tournament setting at locals, I think 1 time. And when I did, it won me the game outright. So yeah, definitely wouldn't change the side deck at all going forward. I mean, I probably would actually. I think the Lightning Storms are probably a pretty weak choice, and I think playing the 1 Talents is also like a little questionable. But if anything, these could probably get changed for something else. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever you guys feel like should be in there, you know, just let me know down in the comment section below. But yeah, that is gonna do it for this Earth Machine deck profile. Like I said, I've had a blast revisiting this deck. If you guys want to see like test hand video, maybe I'll do a combo video instead, because I am going to be uploading again, I think 5 videos of me playing the deck, so definitely check those out if you haven't already. But yeah, thank you guys again for you know, supporting that fundraiser we did to make this possible, and thank you for watching. And as always, WinterKill signing out. We'll see you guys in the next one. And last, but certainly not least, a big shout out goes to our current Divine level channel members who are Ponystar, Cadillacs, Green, Misfit, and HGH Cyber. Thank you guys so much, as always, for extremely kind and very, very generous support of the channel.